water, precious water. Now, we studied the hydrosphere in a little bit of a detail last period, and now we're going to talk about the water cycle itself. The water cycle is exactly what makes up the entire hydrosphere possible. But now let's look at what the water cycle does. Water cycle, in another term, is called the hydrologic cycle. Now, being a cycle, there is really no one starting point. But we're going to start where all water gets collected eventually, the ocean. The ocean is where bodies of water gets collected from upstream mountains all the way downwards, okay? Except with exceptions for underground water like aquifers. Exposed air bodies of water like lakes, rivers, ocean will experience evaporation, which means the liquid water becomes gaseous water, and it will evaporate into the sky or atmosphere. In the atmosphere, when enough molecules of water come together, it will condense, it will form clouds. Now, there are several types of cloud formation, but the one we're interested in is when clouds becomes dark and gray. And when you introduce fine particles like dust to the clouds, which, us humans does contribute a lot of dust particles into the atmosphere, what will happen is when the condensation plus the fine particles get heavy enough, what you would experience is precipitation. Precipitation comes in many forms: rainfall, snow, icing, hail, and the whole enchiladas. Now, most water precipitation will kind of fall back into the ocean. Well, because 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by the ocean. But there will be other areas where we'll experience precipitation: in mountains, in jungles, in the forest. And being planet Earth and its uneven terrain, the water will eventually get collected into streams and rivers, and it goes back out into the ocean unless there's a hole or crevasses in the ground where precipitation will get collected and will go into the ground and get collected in another body of water known as aquifers. So how does human play a role in the hydrologic cycle? In fact, humans play a massive role in influencing and changing the hydrologic cycle. For example, humans are known to settle in rivers and along shorelines where there's lots of sources of water, preferably in deltas and in rivers, because that's where fresh water is available. Now, humans, when they settle into cities or towns, will congregate around rivers. They will divert water all the time for irrigation, farming. Farming gets the sources from huge water diversion. The Romans were famous for water diversion, and so were the early Indian settlers. Water diversion and water sources for farming also comes from underground aquifers, where you see wells being dug and pails of water getting collected. All right? Another use us humans affect the water cycle is that when we settle in the cities, we would, if we're advanced enough in terms of being used, having the available resources, and we're conscious about our personal health, we will build treatment plants upstream from the city. The treatment plant will basically pre-treat the dirty water by removing big chunks of logs and stuff, and then we'll remove finer particles, and then we'll disinfect the water from all these dangerous bacteria like cholera, and some cities will even fluorinate water so that babies can have healthy teeth. And once the water gets treated, it gets distributed into the city. It gets used by the industry, where it's used as a raw material, like making Coke, right? It needs water. When you buy Campbell's can of soup, it has water, but it was condensed. And more importantly, water gets used a lot for cooling when the factories used it to build our cars and iPhones. We need to cool down the factory system so that factories don't get overheated. All right? And we, as consumers, personally consume water because those waters are filtered and purified. We use it for a whole slew of household things, from cooking, washing, and cleaning. And then when all this water gets collected, they are known as wastewater. Wastewater will flow downstream again, not in the river system, separate from the river system, in separate sewage drains and pipes. It gets collected at a wastewater treatment plant. Now, not all cities have wastewater treatment plant because of political regulations or being able to afford to build such complex system to clean the water, or if the people actually care about the environment and they would build one. Okay? So in wastewater treatment, we remove the debris, the grit, again, and grease. You cannot imagine how many people pour cooking oil and grease into the sink. And it will clog our sinks, and it will also clog the treatment plant's pipes. So we have to remove that. Once we remove all the junk, we will allow all the organic matter in the water to settle down into a sludge, and we will remove it. All right? Finally, we'll have the secondary treatment process where we will treat the organic matter. We will oxidize to kill any sort of stuff, oxidize the waste, or maybe nitrify it, remove the nitrification of it. And then usually you'll get discharge. But sometimes in more regulated cities, you have additional tertiary treatment system where you will remove excess nutrients so that you would not allow the excess nutrients to get into the ocean, where it will promote algae growth, unhealthy algae growth, like red algae or something like that. And you will filter it, and maybe some cities will even disinfect the water itself. And it's discharged downstream where it's safe for life to consume it, like animals and stuff, but it may not necessarily be safe for us, and it usually isn't safe for human consumption. So there we go, the entire hydrologic cycle.